History is full of incredible stories that have shaped the world we live in today. But what some people don't know is that history is also full of weird and quirky facts that are just as fascinating. In this video, we'll be sharing some of the mind-blowing and most bizarre stories from history. Make sure like and subscribe for more videos. Number 1. The Roman Emperor Nero played the fiddle while Rome burned. This is one of the most famous and controversial historical facts. It's said that Nero, the Roman emperor from 54 to 68 AD, played the fiddle while Rome burned in 64 AD. Some historians believe that this story is true, while others believe that it's just a myth. There is some evidence to support the story. For example, Tacitus, a Roman historian, wrote that Nero watched the fire from a safe distance and even sang a song about the destruction of Troy. However, other historians have pointed out that Tacitus was not a reliable source, and that he may have been biased against Nero. So, did Nero really play the fiddle while Rome burned? We may never know for sure, but it's a fascinating story that has been told for centuries. Number 2. Adolf Hitler was a vegetarian. Did you know that Adolf Hitler was a vegetarian? Yes, the man responsible for some of the most heinous acts in history was also known to be a strict vegetarian. In fact, he believed that a meatless diet was healthier and morally superior. He would often boast about his vegetarianism and would use it as a means to connect with his followers, who were also encouraged to adopt this lifestyle. However, it's important to note that Hitler's decision to stop eating meat was not rooted in compassion or respect for animal rights. Rather, it was an extension of his belief in racial purity and superiority. This little-known fact about Hitler sheds light on the complexity of his persona and the contradictions that existed within his ideology. Number 3. The French Revolution was started by a fart. This is another one of those historical facts that is hard to believe. But it's true. It all started in 1789, when the French people were fed up with the monarchy and the high taxes. They gathered in the streets of Paris to protest. One of the protesters, a man named Foulon, was a hated figure. He was known for his greed and his cruelty. The protesters surrounded Foulon and demanded that he be executed. Foulon begged for mercy, but the crowd was not listening. They dragged him to a nearby butcher shop and forced him to eat a piece of his own flesh. Then, they killed him and cut off his head. The execution of Foulon was a turning point in the French Revolution. It showed that the people were no longer afraid of the monarchy. And it set the stage for the bloody and chaotic years that followed. 4. The Titanic was sunk by a conspiracy. The sinking of the Titanic is one of the most famous maritime disasters in history. But there are some people who believe that it was not an accident. They believe that the Titanic was sunk on purpose by a group of people who wanted to make money. There are a few different theories about who was behind the conspiracy. Some people believe that it was the British government, who wanted to get rid of the Titanic's owner, J.P. Morgan. Others believe that it was a group of insurance companies, who wanted to collect the insurance money. There is no evidence to support any of these theories. But they make for a fascinating story. Number 5. Albert Einstein was a terrible student. Einstein is one of the most famous scientists in history, but he was not always a good student. In fact, he was often considered to be a slow learner. He did not speak until he was 4 years old, and he did not read until he was 7. He also struggled in school, and he was often on the verge of being held back. But Einstein eventually found his way. He went on to study physics at the Swiss Federal Institute of Technology in Zurich, and he eventually became one of the most brilliant scientists of all time. He developed the theory of relativity, which revolutionized our understanding of space, time, and gravity. He also won the Nobel Prize in Physics in 1921. Number 6. The Loch Ness Monster is real. The Loch Ness Monster is one of the most famous cryptids in the world. It's said to be a large, aquatic creature that lives in Loch Ness, a lake in Scotland. There have been many sightings of the Loch Ness Monster over the years. Some people believe that the monster is real, while others believe that it's just a hoax. There is no scientific evidence to prove that the Loch Ness Monster exists. But that hasn't stopped people from believing in it. The Loch Ness Monster is a popular tourist attraction, and it's even been featured in several movies and TV shows. Number 7. Cleopatra was a master of seduction. Cleopatra was the last active pharaoh of ancient Egypt. She was a beautiful and intelligent woman who was known for her political and sexual prowess. She is said to have seduced Julius Caesar and Mark Antony, two of the most powerful men in the Roman Empire. Cleopatra's seduction techniques were legendary. She was said to bathe in milk and honey, and she wore perfumes that were made from exotic flowers. She was also a skilled dancer and musician. Cleopatra's seduction techniques were so effective that she was able to use them to gain political power. She used her beauty and her sexuality to manipulate Caesar and Antony into helping her to rule Egypt. Number 8. Marie Curie was a chain smoker. Marie Curie is another famous scientist who made significant contributions to our understanding of the world. She was the first woman to win a Nobel Prize, and she is the only person to have won the Nobel Prize twice. She was also the first person to win the Nobel Prize in two different scientific fields. But Curie was also a chain smoker. She smoked up to 25 cigarettes a day, and she continued to smoke even after she was diagnosed with radiation poisoning. She died of aplastic anemia in 1934, at the age of 66. Number 9. The Wright brothers were not the first people to fly. Orville and Wilbur Wright are credited with making the first powered flight in 1903. But there are some people who believe that they were not the first people to fly. There are several other people who are said to have flown before the Wright brothers. One of the most famous is Gustav Whitehead, an American inventor who claimed to have flown a powered aircraft in 1901. There is no definitive proof that Whitehead flew before the Wright brothers. But the evidence is certainly there. And it's a fascinating story that raises some important questions about history. Number 10. George Washington was a Freemason, a member of a fraternal organization that promotes the ideals of brotherly love, relief, and truth. He was initiated into Freemasonry in Fredericksburg, Virginia, on November 4, 1752, at the age of 20. He became a Master Mason in 1753. Freemasonry was popular in colonial America, and Washington was one of many prominent founding fathers who were Freemasons. Others included Benjamin Franklin, Paul Revere, and John Hancock. Washington's Masonic membership has been the subject of much speculation and debate. Some have argued that his membership in Freemasonry influenced his decision to lead the American Revolution. Others have argued that his Masonic membership was simply a reflection of his social and political standing in colonial Virginia. Whatever the reason for his membership, Washington's Masonic affiliation is a significant part of his legacy. It is a reminder of his commitment to the ideals of brotherly love, relief, and truth, which he believed were essential to the success of the new republic. These are just a few of the many weird historical facts that I could have shared with you. I hope you enjoyed learning about them, and I encourage you to do some research of your own. There are many other fascinating stories out there waiting to be discovered. See you in next video. Make sure like and subscribe for more.